We love sports.
And your Texas Longhorns are the Lonestar Showdown champions and will make their first appearance in their inaugural season in the SEC Championship as they beat the Texas A&M Aggies 17-7, and the season finale and a renewal of a very long rival after a 13-year hiatus. The Texas Longhorns take care of business, and Jake, we are celebrating. It's a good feeling. It wasn't always pretty, but in my opinion, Jake, it was a dominant performance in every sense of the word. I think the only time you really didn't get the sense of Texas dominating was because number 3 was making some questionable decisions, some boneheaded plays, and it almost felt as though number 3 had the 4.5 point spread in favor of A&M at times. It's like, just, dude, we're inside the red zone. What are you doing? Why are we coughing up the ball? Well, this hasn't been an issue all season long, and now it's going to bite us in the butt. And then the block punt. I think the block punt was the only time where I was just like, we're starting to get a little testy, but the defense dominated. The offensive line dominated. The running game dominated. I mean, that was a dominant performance in every sense of the word, in my opinion. Jake, this game could have been, should have been much worse on the scoreboard than what it showed. And the Texas Longhorns accomplished something in 4 months that the Texas A&M Aggies have failed to do in 13 years, and that is make an SEC championship game. Jake, your thoughts?
This is going to be this episode's going to go over 30 minutes. This episode's going to go well over 30 minutes.
It might be an hour long, folks.
Yeah.
We don't know how long this is going to go.
So I'm going to try to touch on kind of each of your points, but we're going to really get into it throughout this whole episode. First off, first time popping the drink during the show, feel like it's warranted. It just, a win is a win, as we have seen this day, especially as we've seen all season. But it is getting frustrating.
We almost saw Friday night.
It is getting frustrating to continually say this game should have been much worse. That is my first takeaway, is this game was far more stressful than it should have been. And it's because of 2 bad plays by Quinn Ewers. But in games like these, especially games where your offense is chewing up clock by running the ball, by efficient passing game, because there was a lot of efficiency in the passing game throughout this game. But when you make those boneheaded mistakes, especially in the red zone, it flips the game on its head. And we'll get into it, but I had a little bit of a meltdown during the second half of this game, because it just felt like they were giving the way. The texts aren't good. The texts aren't good for me. They're not a good look, but this game was a complete ass beating. I don't know how else to say it.
It was. Look at across the team stats. I think it was like 460 yards total.
458 to 248.
Yeah. It was utter domination. Jake, the defense, they had a shutout. The defense held a shutout in this game. And Texas A&M's offense didn't really look like they were a threat to score, aside from the first drive of the game where they went for it on 4th down and got stopped at like the 15, 13 some odd yard line, whatever that was. And then Texas, essentially, the offense gave them the ball inside the red zone on the block punt on the goal line stand. And that's the only reason why they had that field position in the first place. And so the defense, I thought, played, for as crazy as this might sound, they played their best game of the season. They've played great games all year long.
It is their best game of the season. A&M's a good offense. We talked about that. And Marcel Reed's shifty. I mean, he was doing everything he could, but this was a game that was won at the line of scrimmage. And I think we may need to structure it where we talk about the offense and the defense, special teams. It might be all over the place, but the line of scrimmage was completely dominated by Texas on both sides of the ball. Yeah. The offensive line deserved more points on the board in this game, but the way the third quarter unfolded was them going on long drives and then turning it over in the red zone. And when you do that, it doesn't matter if you have 458 yards, you're going to end up with 17 points. But like you said, at worst, this should have been a 17-0 game. Or maybe a 20-0 game if you just settle for a field goal instead of the pick six. Because the defense,
or even the fumble.
And Mike Elko's an idiot. That does help. I complimented him a lot this week. I apologize. I was not familiar with his lack of brain cells. I mean, the head coach, who was the best head coach in this game, was very obvious. I don't know about you, but I thought going for it on that 4th and 2 or 4th and 1 from the goal was one of the dumbest decisions I've ever seen. You're going to have to get a stop regardless, and you have a chance to cut it to a 1-possession game. You've already gotten stopped on a short yardage play. Not only that, you don't just do a QB sneak, you hand it off. Elko, I would be pretty ticked off if I was an A&M fan.
Well, Texas A&M finished the game 0 of 3 on 4th down conversions. All 4th down conversions were 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 and shorter, and they ran it up the middle on all 3 downs and got stuffed all 3 downs. If we're going to talk about the line of scrimmage, let's just kind of just hone in on the line of scrimmage right now. Let's try to focus the conversation as much as we possibly can. I want to start on the defensive side of the ball. We can move to the offensive line, and that's perfectly fine. I don't mind doing that. But I thought Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton, hell of a game. Vernon Broughton played his best game of the season. I thought the defensive line, they were so sound and fundamentally just focused. Colin Simmons on the QB spy was brilliant. I don't think he screwed up not one time. Maybe he over pursued once, and Marcel Reed got around him. Marcel Reed is a shifty guy. It's going to be tough for a freshman to make that play as a defensive end. And Colin Simmons played a hell of a game as well. I thought Anthony Hill was all over the place. I thought the spy work, it may have slipped up 1 or 2 times the entire game, but I thought the defensive line, Jake, Ethan Burke played a hell of a game. Obviously, on the 4th down stop on the goal line, he's the one that makes the big play there at the end and gets a tackle for loss on that 4th and 1 from the goal line. And that was, for me, the biggest reason why Texas won this game was not only the offensive line, but the defensive line as well.
Yeah, the edges, man. The defensive tackles brought
Trey Moore with the final strip sack.
Yeah, so the first off, the defensive tackles, everyone who rotated in was not allowing movement to happen. A&M's only success running the ball was if Marcel Reed could make some guys miss with his shiftiness, which was really impressive at times. But even with that, they didn't even get 250 yards of offense. And then Broughton, I mean, he had 1 sack going into this game. He had 2 in this game. And not only on the sack plays, he was just constantly in the backfield. And I thought the game plan was really impressive. They talked about it in the broadcast. They were moving Reed where they wanted him to go. Mm-hmm. They had spaces they were allowing him to run to, and they were pushing him that way and still getting pressure. The edges the containment was fantastic. The spies were fantastic. Colin Simmons, like you said, he is just incredible as a freshman to be able to contain. And this is where the high school game amping up has helped players like this. You get put in space where you have to contain and read more often. And he can go full attack mode, but he can also read. And then I was just really impressed with they moved the pocket where they wanted Reed to go. And I thought that was because you look at it, they were trying to make him roll right. The pick to Taft was on a roll right. And again, the secondary was amazing, but just focusing on that defensive line, I can't point out a single person who didn't just have a terrific game. This is, and regardless of what happens in the SEC title game, regardless of what happens in the playoffs, this is the best Texas defense we have ever seen in our lifetimes, at the least. Better in 2005, better than some of those late 2000 teams. I've never seen a defense dominate like this. They took out the 12th man by not allowing the A&M offense to do anything.
Yeah, Vernon Broughton had those 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and two total tackles on the game. But I mean, they were big plays, and really, it comes down to not even just the stat sheet. It's when you're a defensive tackle, it's all the gaps that you fill in the run game and forcing running backs to bounce outside whenever their run lane is in your gap, and you stay sound in your assignments. And I just thought the defense they were so impressive to me on that side of the ball, where I told you in text, Texas is dominating this game. It was domination on the defensive side of the ball, and it made A&M's offense, which is a pretty prolific offense in terms of gaining yards and efficiency on the ground game and 3rd down conversion rate and all that sort of stuff. They made Texas A&M's offense look mediocre in that game, and it was putrid at times, and it was all because of the Texas defense played their A game. They allowed a couple things through the air, and that's perfectly fine. That's going to happen. But to for your game plan to focus in on the run game and you not get beat by the run hardly at all, it's a testament because, yeah, if you're going to solely focus on stopping the run, you're going to give up a little bit in the pass, and it didn't hurt them at the end of the day.
They didn't really give up any. If giving up something through the pass is 16 to 23, 146 yards, no touchdowns and an INT, then you got a pretty damn good defense if that feels like giving up something through the air. And then on the running side, just looking at the box score, Marcel Reed led the way for A&M, 14 carries, 60 yards, 4.3 yards per average. I will take that against that type of quarterback. But here's where it gets now. And he had that 24-yard rush. I think that was late in the fourth quarter. Amari Daniels, 13 carries, 21 yards, a long of 5. Reuben Owens, 3 carries, 10 yards, a long of 4. Terry Bussey had 2 carries for 5 yards, long of 3. EJ Smith, 1 carry, 4 yards. Jade Walker, 1 carry, 2 yards. Outside of Marcel Reed, their longest carry of the game was 5 yards, and they averaged just under 3 yards per carry between all the running backs that weren't Marcel Reed in this game. That is just a fantastic job against a good running offense. And I know they're missing Moss. Well, Texas is missing several running backs, and what was supposed to be their third string running back just ran all over A&M. So I don't want to hear that excuse.
It's a terrible excuse, but and I'm glad you bring that up, Jake. I think it's a perfect transition. Trey Wisner and the offensive line for the Texas Longhorns, again, pure domination. Hayden Connor was absolutely deleting people off the face of the earth with his play today in the run game. It was very fun to watch. DJ Campbell played great. Cam Williams, I thought, played fantastic. Jake Majors was all over the place. He was making pulls and just doing things that looked very Jason Kelsey-like in the run game. And then your best player on your entire team, Kelvin Banks, goes out early in this game. And you get a guy like a Trevor Gooseby to step in.
Redshirt freshman.
And he just played. I didn't even realize Scorton was out there. I didn't even realize some of the pass rushers. Did I say that correctly? Scorton, scoreless?
Never heard of her.
Did it score at all? Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like, because this offensive line, you lose your best player on your entire team at left tackle at one of the most important positions on the field, and you didn't miss a beat.
All the horns up.
4 horns up, man. 8 of them. I don't know.
Let me ask you this. Trey Wisner's the MVP of the game. Or MVP of the offense. That's not a question. I'd probably give Taft the MVP of the defense, or Broughton.
Broughton played pretty.
Is Gooseby the second MVP of the offense?
It won't
going
be
in that environment as a redshirt freshman.
Yeah, it won't be recognized in terms of nationally media, but we are going to give him his flowers because, yes, Jake. I mean, it just that to do that type of performance in that type of environment in that type of game, get into the SEC championship type of a game, and you're coming in for Kelvin Banks, and it seems like Kelvin Banks is still playing, dude. Get out of here. I mean, what a performance. Just fantastic. He wasn't just good. He was dominant. The whole offensive line, dominant.
Yeah. Cole Hudson, when he came in, he was in several possessions, just moving people. For Banks to go down, I was worried because A&M has good edges. They have their front 7 is what this defense is built on. They got bullied. This is 2 good fronts in a row. And you talk about that Georgia game, this offensive line, as it was said on the broadcast, they took that personally. Insert Michael Jordan meme. They took that game personally, and they have been punching people in the mouth since then. And if it wasn't for self-implosions that aren't the offensive line's fault, though you could maybe a little bit on the Quinn pick, they let a guy through, but overall, not the offensive line's fault, or the only reason they're not putting up 40 plus points a game. This game should have been 34-41 to zip. If you really think about how the flow of the game was going, it was just long drive down the field, pick 6, long drive down the field, fumble, at the same exact spot that they
Yeah.
were at when they threw the pick six, by the way.
Yeah.
And then a block punt on
And
a
then
drive where they were just running clock.
and a missed field goal right before half.
Oh, I forgot about, yeah, we'll get into the special teams. The special teams is the punting and kicking on this team is atrocious.
It's not good.
Maybe we should get into that now because
just go for it. Yeah, get into it.
What happened to Burt? Kickers are head cases, man. He has been terrible this year.
He was so good. He was so good last year. He was the best kicker in college football.
He set the record for most consecutive kicks for Texas, if I remember correctly. And now I know it's a 48-yard, but he's had several 40-plus yarders that are just not even close.
On contact with the ball, it's no good. Like the moment it comes off his foot, I'm like, yeah, that's no good. That doesn't stand a chance.
And there's been multiple times where it's been talked about him not looking good in warmups. He didn't look good at Arkansas in the warmups, by the way. I was paying attention. And the punting, I mean, when it's not blocked, it's going 30 yards. It's Texas is lucky this defense is good as it is because they never just the offensive side for the other team never starts with the ball inside their 20-yard line unless they try to return the kick, because the kickoff unit is really good. But if it's off a punt, even if we're punting from midfield, at best, it's going to be a touchback, which I don't think he has a single punt pinned inside the 10, at least not an important one. And it's frustrating, and it could cost them in the playoffs. Because this special teams unit, mainly the punting and the field goal unit, is atrocious. It's one of the worst in the country.
Tyler White, who is the A&M punter and is probably going to get drafted in the NFL. It's possible. I know he's a punter, but it's possible. He's one of the country's best, if not the best punter in the country.
Is he a freshman too?
200 yards total on 4 punts, averaged about 50 on average per punt. His long was a 69-yard punt. Michael Curran, who did have to punt the length of the field, by the way, his long was 43. That's staggering.
And Tyler White's number it would be even better if it wasn't for just barely missing a couple, pinning them deep, where he wasn't kicking from midfield. He was kicking from, the 35, 20, the 40-yard line, and he just bombed it.
Yeah. It's staggering. And if Texas had the ability to flip the field and put their defense in favorable field position instead of punting it from your own 20 and getting it only to the 50, which is just, that's high school level. That is legitimately 3A, 4A high school level punting by Michael Curran. It's bad in terms of allowing the defense no breathing room, no room for mistakes. And for this defense to continually step up and still make stops and still be the number one defense in the country is a testament to them, because they've had no help from their punt game whatsoever.
No, and they've had no help from their offense. The defense deserved to see a goose egg in this game. And we can get into, maybe now's the time to dive into Quinn Ewers' play, because the first half, I was just like, this is incredible. He is not only playing really well, but playing with guts. Just playing with pure heart and making plays, running the ball, moving around the pocket, playing with confidence. And then the second half happened. And now you come away and there's still going to be the talk about quarterback play, despite the fact I do want to give Quinn his roses. He's going to end his career at Texas 2-1 against Oklahoma and 1-0 against A&M, with 2 back-to-back 10-plus win seasons and 2 back-to-back conference championship title appearances. And he does contribute to that.
And back-to-back playoff appearances.
And that can't be. I know this year the defense but the offense was the better side of the ball last year. And this year it's been the defense, and Quinn has still had brilliant moments, but he's a little bit of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, because the first half he was brilliant. I don't know if the numbers looked, out of this world, but he was making the plays and he hit deep balls. And then in the second half, and it is kind of clouded by those 2 plays, but at the end of the day, he's a third-year starter. You can't let the other team back in the game.
And the problem is that you're going on these long drives, these culture drives that Sark has coined. and you're starting at your own 20, you're getting it inside the 30, inside the 20 of Texas A&M, inside the red zone, and 2 back-to-back turnovers inside the red zone is just it's so frustrating. And you look at Sark on the sideline, and he's just like he has no words. He has absolutely no words. There's nothing he can do about that. He got the team down the field with the right play calls. It's just a matter of executing. And my thing on Quinn, Jake, is this game, at least I'll say the whole game. I think this was the most composed, under control. And like you said, the game that he probably played with the most heart that I've seen Quinn play all season long, this game. He came out looking really good. He came out scrambling, moving around in the pocket well, making the right reads, making the right throws, did all the right things. In the second half, it came down to really 2 decisions or plays that didn't go his way. And the Bond play on 3rd and 6, I want to say in the fourth quarter, it was like a 10-yard curl on 3rd and 6, had him wide open and missed him by about 5 or 6 yards and just dirted it. And it wouldn't have even been good, even if it was long enough of a pass to get to Bond. And that throw was just terrible. And I don't know if that was a bad throw. I don't know if bad communication. I don't know if it was a choice route and Bond was supposed to go. It probably was a little bit of both. Who knows? Him and Bond, I will say this, Jake, need to get on the same page. He and Golden are on the same page. He and Helm are on the same page. He had a couple nice throws to Wingo tonight. I thought Wingo played very well tonight. He and Bond need to get it together. If I am looking at this correctly, Isaiah Bond held without a reception in this entire game. And that to me is inexcusable. And it goes to show the struggles right now between number 1 wide receiver and number 1 quarterback.
Yeah. At this point, Matthew Golden's almost your go-to guy. I mean,
Helm is.
Helm actually is the go-to guy. And then as far as receivers go, Golden is, because Bond is clearly not playing healthy, first off. And then I think he's probably not practicing much, and that's probably playing into them not being on the same page. Because on the first drive of the game, there was a couple plays where they just were not on the same page offensively. And it's an issue because Bond is an explosive player and he needs to be included in this offense, but they just are not able to find ways to get him the ball through the passing game right now. Yeah, one carry for 3 yards, and you're not going to hand off the ball to him more than once or twice in a game. So you got to find a way to get him involved in the passing game that's not just a quick screen. And I don't know what that is right now.
Jake, what are we in turn? I guess it depends on his health, and we don't really know 100% about what his health is because he's not showing up on injury reports or anything like that. Punt return, special teams, like, are there ways that we can just get this guy the ball?
If he's not hobbled, but it looks like he is, and he's comfortable punt return, I think you could throw it out there and try it. I mean, Bolden hasn't made any big plays this year really in the game. And the only thing he did good this game was he didn't make any stupid fielding of the punts. He did let it go several times for a touchback, which he has not done all year.
No, he didn't do anything stupid. That was his best play.
He didn't give me a heart attack a single time this game. That's the first time all season. Everything else on our special teams gave me a heart attack, except for Silas Bolden in this game. So there's a positive you can say about Bolden. But yeah, I mean, you could try out Wong. I mean, they throw out Golden for kickoff return. I'd probably rather try Bond out there and make sure Golden doesn't get hurt on like a kickoff return. Because right now you need Matthew Golden out there on the field. I mean, he is the number 1 wide receiver to go to right now. And Quinn seems to have a good connection with him. He hit him on deep balls. He seems to have good connection with Wingo, hit him on a nice crossing route. That was pretty deep. And I thought the passing game looked really good in the first half, and in the second half, it was looking fine. I think, was it the second half, the throw to Helm that was like a magic ball that somehow Helm caught and went through 2 defenders.
The 2 defenders. Yes,
one of the plays of the game, by the way, because I believe that was
off
a ton of clock.
I believe that was a 3rd down,
yes,
if I'm not mistaken. So Jake, let's go ahead and let's circle back real quick to Quinn in second halves. What are you contributing to him kind of with this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of personality that we're seeing with Quinn in terms of his play. He's been even keel. I'm not seeing anything body language wise. I'm not seeing anything, mentally or frustration or emotionally charged issues that might be playing a part in this. It's simply play on the field. Or is it just, hey, he made a scramble. He thought he was taking a sack. The defender happened to hit the ball out of his hand, and it was just a kind of a football play that didn't go his way. What is it?
I do think the fumble was just a little bit of football play. Also, I did see some talk about this, and when you slide, normally the play's over as soon as you give yourself up. I think it should have been a fumble. It was a fumble, to be clear, but that is an interesting talking point on that play. But I'm going to try to be a little bit on the optimist side this time, because I've criticized Quinn plenty this year, so I'm not just being a sunshine pumper here. But when you have an offense that in the second half, its goal is to just run the football, run the clock, dominate the time of possession, and take really long possessions, and then you have one bad play here or there, it really clouds that perspective, right? In the first half, you're running a regular offense. In the second half, they're running a different offense because they are successful on the ground. You just keep running the football. Then you have that, the pick six, it was tipped. It was still a bad decision. Even if it doesn't get tipped, it just maybe doesn't get picked for a touchdown if it does not get tipped at the line of scrimmage. And so you have two plays that completely cloud all the great things he did in this game. And it's because the offense had 3 or 4 possessions in the second half, as opposed to the first half where they had at least 6 or 7. Yeah. And so you're seeing a Texas offense that is getting probably half of the possessions they're getting in the first half and the second half, just because they run so much clock because they have a big lead. Then you have a couple bad plays. And in the Kentucky game, he was just hurt. He should have been pulled in that game if it wasn't senior day. Yeah. And that gives off that perspective, I think, a little bit more than it is anything to do directly with Quinn's actual play. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And also to add on to that point of view, that perspective of it is when you're run, 5 runs, pass, 5 more runs, pass. So each of those 2 or 3 possessions, you're getting 3 passing attempts, maybe.
He threw the ball 5 times in the second half against Kentucky. He probably only threw it 8 or 9 times this game.
A handful of times in the second half in this game. And so my point being is, whenever you do have a limited amount of snaps or a limited amount of passing plays, you have to make them. You have to make them, or else it is going to look really ugly in the second half. It's going to give that perception that he is messing up and that he is playing bad, and it's poor play by the quarterback, when in reality the offense is moving down the field. The offense is doing the offense's job. It's just the 3-4 times that you need Quinn to make a play, they're not going his way. And I think that has something to do with kind of to add on to what you're trying to explain.
Yeah, so Quinn threw it 17 times in the first half. So he threw it 11 in the second half. And a lot of those were early on throws that were pretty big. He was 6 of 11 in the second half, which is, it's not great, but it's not terrible. And a couple of those were tip balls. And so
here's another thing on the tip balls, Jake. Does he need, what's with the release? That seems like a him problem, because it's not like it's JJ Watt, like they're jumping 6 feet up in the air and knocking these balls down. These are like, get the hand up while you're getting blocked, batting them down. I mean, they're not.
It's a Quinn issue, and I think it's I know he's had this tendency. It's happened in previous years. It's happened way more this year. I think part of that's just playing in a conference where the linemen are bigger, and it's getting exploited this year. And it's honestly, it's just something that you're not going to be able to fix in season. It's just not. Right. You can't change his delivery.
No,
you can't change his passing mechanics mid-season.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like he lollipops it too much. He has great.
That's
touch.
Always been an issue,
right?
He
has great
doesn't
touch,
bullet the ball.
And it was in the first quarter or second quarter. It was in the first half for sure, where it was the opening touchdown drive where he throws it into 3 defenders on the goal line. It's nearly intercepted, and then Arch comes in on 4th and 2 and gets the touchdown score. And so it's like, dude, that could have ended in an interception and literally taken points off the board, knowing what hindsight is.
Yeah, but on the flip side, was that Bolden deep ball not his best throw that he's ever had at Texas?
Golden?
That ball, the Golden.
The Golden? Yeah.
The deep ball to Golden. Because not only was that perfectly in stride, but that ball had some, as far as deep balls go, that ball had a little zip to it.
Yeah.
That was an NFL throw. I mean, that was a damn good deep ball.
And that's what NFL scouts see. For those who want to critique Quinn, it's those individual plays. If he can put the full body of work together consistently throughout an entire game, yes, he is a first-round pick. Yes, he is a top 15 guy, probably a top 3 quarterback in the draft. Is he playing like that? No. Has he put it all together in one package for an extended period of time? No, he has not. And so me personally, for his future as an NFL, GM, I wouldn't touch him in the first couple of rounds personally. But yeah, that's just it. Like you said, Jake, there are certain throws, there are certain moments that just shine, and you're like, he's got it. If he puts this together regularly and consistently, he's a shoo-in to be a very good, serviceable quarterback in the NFL, and he's that type of talent, but he hasn't shown it regularly or consistently.
But at the end of the day, because this is the end of his Texas regular season games, and so just to kind of wrap a bow on his career to this point at Texas, is he a winner and is he a leader? And is he what Texas probably needed these last few years? And Texas fans need to realize that yes on all 3 of those, because I saw calls for Arch today, and we're going to have plenty of Arch time. I promise.
Get into that here in a little bit too, by the way.
Yeah, but you gotta give Quinn his roses, because what he's done at Texas after a decade of plus of sucking, you have to appreciate it. Is he perfect? No. Are most college quarterbacks perfect? No. But he has been a winner. He is going to go to the playoffs in 2 years back-to-back. He has a chance to win 2 back-to-back conference titles. Colt McCoy, Vince Young, none of those guys did that. Yeah. None of them, I don't even think, got the opportunity to do that. Yeah. It hasn't been done, I think, since like the 90s.
And he's going to do it. He's going to do it possibly in 2 different conferences.
Yeah. Which is ironically the last time Texas won 2 back-to-back titles. It was when they won the Southwest Conference, and then they won the Big 12 the next year.
Yeah.
Ironically.
Which is it's funny enough. Yeah.
We have criticized Quinn plenty on this podcast, and I saw a lot of negativity surrounding him because of those 2 plays. And I think we've been
very fair with our discussion on Quinn. It's not always criticizing. Like I think it's, to your point, Quinn has been the exact guy we've wanted this all along, since we were looking at Gerard Hurd as the starting quarterback, since Tyrone Swoops. Like, go back to the days where you're just putting in wide receivers to play quarterback. Like, we've been there. Quinn is this perfect step into Sark's scheme and system and the Sark era. Quinn was a perfect fit for that. Arch will take over. Arch is going to be brilliant. Arch is going to be fun. He's going to be exciting. He's QB1 next year, regardless of whatever happens this year. Like, it's Arch's time next year. We understand that. We're fully prepared for that. We're super excited about that. It's a perfect, handing of the torch, if you will. But like to your point, Jake, the success that we've seen under Quinn, every Texas fan should be appreciative of him. And it kind of wants me, I want to dive into this conversation. Maybe it's better served throughout the week, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask you, final synopsis on the entire season.
Success.
Absolutely.
It wasn't perfect, but they lost 1 game in the SEC to a team that has won 2 out of the last 3 national titles. And they played the worst first half. Imagine their first half against Georgia was still worse than the second half against A&M.
Yeah.
And yet they still fought back and made that.
And we're about to have a rematch against that exact team to win the conference.
And I'm excited to see the offensive line play in that game. I as great as Gooseby was, I really hope Kelvin Banks is back. Yeah. He deserves to play in these final games of his Texas career. He deserved to play in this full game. It's a damn shame he didn't get to, but this season has been awesome. I will never, ever take an 11-1 season for granted. I've seen too many 5-7 seasons. I have seen too many 8-4 seasons. to not have nothing but a feeling of gratitude and success in a season where you go 11-1 and you beat OU, you beat the crap out of them in the Cotton Bowl, and then you go to Little Brother in their biggest game in program history, and you remind them, Daddy's home, and you chant SEC in their building, ironically at them at the end of the game. They may lose in the SEC title game. They may lose in the first, second, third playoff game. I don't know. But this season has been awesome, and I'm just never going to take an 11-win season for granted.
Jake, it's something that you and I have talked about for years, for a very long time, that this team and Texas as a football program should be this team. Year in and year out, they should be a 10-win, 11-win team competing for a conference championship, despite what conference they're in. This is the program that you and we've talked about since Colt McCoy and the Mac Brown era ended, and it's been a long time. It's felt like a long time. I mean, nearly pushing 15 years is a long time to be a doormat in the butt of a lot of jokes, and we're here finally. And I'm realizing, I've realized it for a while, but I feel like some fans, for whatever reason, don't put that perspective on. They don't wear those glasses. But it's very rare you see this happen, and it's great to feel like Texas is back. Texas is back. It's not Texas is almost there, or we will be back, or is Texas back? There's no question mark. Texas is back. We're here. We're ready to put our footprint back on the college football landscape. And Texas has a chance to do something very incredible, and that's win an SEC championship in year one, in a conference in which a lot of teams, fans, national media said, oh, wait till you get to the SEC. It's a gauntlet every single week. It's no Big 12. You can't do that in you can't do that in the SEC. You can't do what you did in the Big 12 in the SEC. You can't do that. Well, guess what? Texas has a chance in 7 days' time to do exactly that.
Yeah, the bottom of the SEC teams would win the Big 12. I remember hearing that. And Texas is in. I don't care about I don't give a damn about the schedule, quite frankly, because all these teams lost to, and Ohio State lost to Michigan, if you want to go to their non-conference schedule as well. All these teams that people said weren't that good on Texas's schedule, all these teams bitching about it, all lost to those teams. And Texas didn't. They lost to Georgia, and then they played their second toughest game of the schedule tonight. And it wasn't always perfect. It wasn't always pretty, but at the end of the day, they had over 200 more yards of offense than them.
It didn't ever feel like A&M was going to win that game, Jake.
After the block punt, I melted down a little.
After the block punt, it felt okay. If there is going to be a time, it's going to be now. And that was the only time. And then Texas came up with the goal line stand, and it was over, just like that. After the goal line stand, I said Texas won this game handedly. I never felt in doubt for a second, Jake, in that game, aside from after the block punt. That's when I was like, okay, now I'm starting to get a little annoyed. This is starting to fall apart a little bit. But then the defense played championship caliber defense, and they proved themselves tonight in so many different ways. And I'm just, where this program is, Jake, is what you and I have talked about for years, of saying, even when we were in the Big 12, it should be Texas OU playing in the Big 12 championship every single year. And if it's not, it should be Texas one year and OU the next year, and Texas missing out by a tie-breaking weird scenario. That's what it should be every single year. And now that it's in the SEC, that expectation for me is not changing, because I went into this year saying Texas, my prediction this year was 11-1, losing to Georgia, and then playing in the SEC championship game and winning it, Jake. That was legitimately my prediction this year. So they met my expectations. And I 100% satisfied with how this season is going and how it's turned out.
And I just want to do this real quick to give the defense their flowers, because Josh Pate does a little segment on his show, the Sarah McLaughlin special, where he plays the sad music. We don't have the sad music, but I just want to read this A&M drive chart for the game, because it might bring a tear to my eye, honestly. Downs, interception, punt, downs, punt, downs, fumble. That was the A&M possessions in this game. And the defense, I mean, do you agree with me? This is the best defense we've seen in our lifetime.
Yes.
Of any
Jake,
Texas team.
I can't even compare it to like the DKR defenses that when they were number one in the country, because it's just not the same game of football anymore. Like the game of football is not played like that anymore. So it's almost uncomparable to say all time. So I'm going to go out and go out on a limb and say this is the best Texas defense of all time. And this team can ride the backs of this defense to a national championship despite your quarterback play, period.
Yeah, despite just implosions, whether it be special teams, quarterback, running backs fumbling. It hasn't been all Quinn. It's these implosions this year are not all on Quinn.
No, but we've never seen that. If Texas has a history, well, recent history of implosions happening, game's over. Game's over. An implosion happens.
PTSD today. I got PTSD tonight.
You had real PTSD. Worst loss in program history. And I quote from Jacob. And the fourth quarter after the pick six, this will go down as the worst loss in Texas program history, ladies and gentlemen. It didn't get much better than that, but just bad loss. I can't believe Texas lost this game. Third quarter, Jake, by the way. Third quarter, second half. I even told him, even after the pick six, Jake, what did I respond to you? I said, Texas is dominating. Same game plan, same scheme, same plays. Texas will dominate this game. They did exactly that. Quinn just fumbled and took that away from me.
I guess one of us is just bound to melt down each week.
I had a meltdown more so against Arkansas than I did in this game.
Yeah, which I was the one texted you like, no, this they're going to win this game in Arkansas. I never panicked in that game a single minute. Yeah. But then in this game, I don't know why. I was on high alert. I was pacing. My wife, quote from her, I've never heard you yell like this. And I yell during all the games. But this game, it was just amplified because it's to go to the SEC title. It is to remind little brother who is little brother. They got College Game Day, which what is their record now on game day? It
got to be one win.
They might pay College Game Day to not come anymore.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. That's why Lee Corso just automatically puts on the opposing team's mascot head. But Jake, it's been a hell of a season, and we have all week next week to get into the Georgia rematch, going into that game and kind of what we expect. But Michigan beating Ohio State. You had Miami losing to Syracuse today. You had a couple of other big games around the area. Memphis beat Tulane, shut them down on what was that, Thursday night? Something along those lines, Friday night?
We have a lot of this next week is going to be jam-packed. We have a lot of college playoff talk we need to do. We have an SEC championship to prepare for. We got to break down this game more. Yeah. It is going to be a jam-packed week next week.
We won't have any shortage of content for you guys next week. This is a 45-minute long episode. Not even sure if we're completely done talking about it. I kind of just enjoying the conversation that we're having. There's no where this show is going at this point. It's just this is literally our immediate reaction and how we feel about the Texas program, about this game. It feels so nice, and it's not because I ever thought Texas was a worse team than A&M or that I ever really thought A&M had a great chance of winning this game. I was nervous. I was stressed out a little bit going into it just because the amplification of the game itself. Win SEC championship type game, you're away on the road. It's always hard to win at college football on the road. Doesn't matter where you're at. But to beat the victim mentality, Texas A&M little brother, where it's just woe is me all the time. And it's just always an excuse. There's always a tear. There's always something to cry about. It's never their fault. It's never not them just not living up to expectations or their coaches or their players on the field. It's always some outside source. And I'm just curious, Jake, what is it this time? What's the excuse going to be? Oh, Texas had a weak schedule. We should have won that game. Like, yeah, you're on the weak schedule. You are the weak schedule. You know, on second thought, Texas had a very weak schedule. We had to play Texas A&M. Of course, it was a weak schedule.
Texas A&M, Oklahoma, dragging down the Texas schedule.
Yeah, of course it was a weak schedule. We had to play Texas. We had to play you guys. Yeah, it just but to beat them and to beat them so soundly and to never have it really be in question or in doubt, God, it's so nice to end the season off that way.
It's also the fact for me that A&M threw their hissy fit when Texas got into the SEC, and the little consolation they got thrown to them was getting this game at home for the second time in a row. And then it turns out to be a win and into the SEC game where you've had a 12-year head start, and you really get embarrassed. For people who actually watch this game, it was not a 10-point game on the field as far as how it was played. It was clear. It was clear and obvious, just like both of Texas's touchdowns that had to be reviewed. It was clear and obvious who the better team was in this game. And by the way, they could have kicked a field goal on all three of those and still won this football game 9-7. But this game was such a culture win.
Well, Bert Auburn probably would have missed.
Yeah, that is true. But this game for me was I think it's CJ Baxter's Tribune of talking about the culture at Texas. And I think about you earlier in the show talking about Texas. We have watched so many meltdowns under previous coaches. It triggered my PTSD tonight. Hand up. I melted down. And yet this team is different. This culture is different, and they can withstand the moments of beating themselves, because every team in college football does it. Every team in college football beats themselves in games. All the best teams do it. Every team does it, and this season especially. And yet they're able to withstand that and have even though they fumbled on that drive, they still chewed a ton of clock, running it down their throats, all the way down into the, inside the 15 or 10 yard line. And then the offense has a couple miscues, the block punt, and the defense just says, no, it doesn't matter. We don't care. And then Mike Elko assists you by not kicking the field goal to cut it to
and calls a timeout. He had
calls a timeout.
A&M had 0 timeouts with like 3 minutes left in the game.
Oh, and they had 0 timeouts in the first half. They had to burn a bunch of timeouts in the first half.
Well, they got scared for the Arch Manning package. Arch Manning came out the second time. They said, "Oh, let's use our second timeout in the first quarter and leave us with 1 timeout for the remainder of the first half." And then by the time the second half they ran out of timeouts in the second half at the end of the game, I think it was like 3.5 minutes left in the game or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Sarkisian outcoached Elko. I saw people complaining about the Quinn fumble and the pick and being like, run the ball. What? They had just ran it. They lost yardage. He's being aggressive and trying to score a touchdown. You don't play with a handicap in the game. You play to stomp on their throats. I didn't have an issue. If anything, the only play call I had an issue with this whole game was ironically a run call on 3rd down and 6, where they just kind of submitted into kicking a field goal.
Yep. I agree.
Other than that, I thought Sarkisian was brilliant in this game. The Arch package was completely threw A&M off guard. Scored a touchdown, forced a timeout out, and at the end of the halves, Texas had timeouts to play with, and they used them. Whereas A&M was having to burn timeouts. The burn timeout in the 4th and goal in a game where you still are going to have to get a stop, regardless of if you score a touchdown or a field goal. That's embarrassing by the head coach.
Oh yeah, no. Elko got out coached by Sark far and away, and I think I complained about one play call for Sark, and that was the 3rd and 6 play. So that's a lame play call. That's really lame. And then they hurry up and they go, they put the offense out there on 4th and 2 to try to get A&M to jump, and everyone knew what they were doing, and they called timeout and they kicked the field goal instead and get 17 points. But I really thought Sark did a masterful job really the last 3 weeks, and he put it in his press conference. He's coined the term culture drives. We saw 2 culture drives in this game in the second half. One ended in a pick 6, one ended in a fumble. And it's frustrating that that's what happened, but those were the culture drives that Sark's talking about. I mean, I believe that those drives, Jake, if you can look up at the drive chart real quick before I can, you might get there before I can. What were the length of those drives? I want to say they had to have been 8 to 10 play drives.
11
starting at their
plays, 78 yards, 5 minutes, interception, touchdown. 12 plays, 64 yards, 5 minutes and 38 seconds. That's the third quarter.
Beautiful. And that's beautiful football. You take away the last 2 plays of those drives, beautiful football. Should have ended in 7 points. Really, honestly,
Or just 3.
You just get 3 points on each one of those possessions, and you're looking at a 23-7 win. Texas feels much. We
23
feel,
zip.
yeah, you're right. 20, yeah,
the big touchdown doesn't happen.
Yeah, 23-0. Yeah, and we're feeling just over the moon. I mean, I feel over the moon anyway. Nothing's going to bring me down from the high that I'm currently on now. But
I'm not going to get mad about style points in a win in a rivalry game that was in one of the craziest environments. I mean, that environment was just wild.
Hey, can we talk about the broadcast real quick? Whenever they open up with Texas A&M's little fight song about sawing off the horns, they put the freaking lyrics like it was a karaoke night on the broadcast. Am I the only one that felt like that was it was a good broadcast? They did a good broadcast in terms of like showing the environment and stuff, but to put the song lyrics on the screen, like I'm surprised they didn't have the little Mickey Mouse little head bouncing around on the words.
So here's why I like it. It showed everyone how obsessed they are with Texas. Their entire fight song is about Texas.
Sawing off horns, and the whole thing.
I saw some people on X making posts that were like, I didn't realize their whole fight song, and it wasn't Texas fans. It was just neutral third because everyone was watching this game. The viewers for this game it's got to be crazy. When
the SEC is wetting their pants right now.
Oh yeah,
with the numbers that are going to come in.
I saw a lot of people being like, I had no idea their whole fight song was about Texas. And it's like, yeah, we're not kidding when we say they have little brother syndrome.
Oh, it's bad.
And I was happy they show that because you can't understand what they're saying because a lot of the words in that song are gibberish, like words that just don't exist. And, everyone got to see the Midnight Yell, which they tried to trash on TU's schedule, which I don't know why they're so obsessed with Tulane University.
Yeah, or Tennessee.
Yeah, I don't get it, but everyone just got to see A&M for who they are, and then A&M exposed themselves for who they are at the end of this game.
They tried to add in a cannon, much like what Big Brother has at the end of their end zones. And I'm not sure if anybody saw on game day.
Like their offense.
Yeah, they completely fumbled that snap. Oh my God, that was a complete debacle. That was just embarrassing. Somebody put it over the Curb Your Enthusiasm soundtrack, and it fit perfectly. Just fumbling the ammunition and having to light it, and on game day it was live. They had to go to commercial and come back and redo it. Oh, dude, it was just...
And for me as a barbecue guy, showing their barbecue and they're opening up a freaking pellet grill. Using an easy bake oven to brag about putting a bad name on Texas barbecue.
Yeah. Well,
they open up their Traeger.
Yeah, I will be drinking in the Aggie tears all week long, all year long. We have a full year of bragging rights, and I can't wait for the excuses, Jake. they're going to come.
I saw people blaming officials.
Oh yeah, it won't be tonight, maybe, but like give it like a month, give it 2 months, give it at the start of next season. You're going to hear some of the most ridiculous, outlandish excuses from A&M fans. And Billy Lucci, I just need to go on his Twitter real quick. I need to see what has spewed out of his mouth in the last couple hours.
It's the Cartman to Scott Tinnerman or whatever. The yes, your tears, they're so delicious.
The tears are so good. Yeah. That's exactly how I feel now. That's me.
I'm going to be going on X today and tomorrow. I have years of bookmarks to go through. Let me tell you, I am about to enjoy every last second of it. Call it petty, call it whatever you want, call it obsessed. I don't really give a damn. All it takes me is a press of the button to bookmark it. And then all it takes me is to enjoy a nice little glass of whiskey and just go through them all.
Jake, again, 4 months time to do something that Texas A&M has not achieved in 13 years. And that is to appear in an SEC championship game, not just win it, but to play in one. And Texas has done that in year one in the SEC. And they do that by beating Texas A&M at Texas A&M. It doesn't get much better than just
in a winner takes all game. I couldn't have written the script better. I really couldn't have.
Jake, the only word I can use for it is poetic. and that is just icing on the cake.
The only thing that would have been better, and we'll get into this next week with all the every single team who won a rivalry game today tried to plant the flag and got in a fight.
That was
Sarkisian
awesome.
stopped that from happening, and I get it. Sarkisian is classy.
Well, it was Sarkisian. Yes, Sarkisian had something to do with it. But did you see that the little Texas A&M policemen, they were defending their logo at midfield?
Are they fake policemen like they're fake military?
Yeah, they're fake police officers. They're fake state troopers like they're fake military academy that they have at Texas A&M, and they're fake farmers. They were protecting and guiding the 50-yard line, so there was no flag planting. Like Alfred Collins couldn't blow through you and plant that if he really wanted to. Yeah, so give me a break. All right, Jake, we're pushing on an hour here. I knew this episode was going to go long, and honestly, I could probably go for another 30 minutes.
I could go another hour.
Dude, I have no reason to stop recording this. However, if we want to get some rest, if we want to enjoy the rest of our nights, we can call it here. But do you have any other final thoughts, anything else that you want to get off your chest before we hang this thing up?
Just, if you're a Texas fan, don't get caught up in the moments of frustration from this game, from the season. And yes, I know some of this stuff could cost them later on. We'll get into that. But tonight's not the night for that. Tomorrow's not the time for that. Save that for next week. Just enjoy this. This is an 11-1 football team with the chance to win an SEC title in year one. And after coming off a year where they went to the playoffs, ended top 4, won a Big 12 title, enjoy this. This is something we have all waited for a very long time. Enjoy this moment. Enjoy this night. Enjoy this weekend. And just drink it in and drink in those Aggie tears.
And with that said, everybody, the Texas Longhorns beat the Texas A&M Aggies 17-7 in the season finale and will play the Georgia Bulldogs in a rematch in the SEC championship game next week. For Jake Jimerson, I'm Tanner Carlson. This is All in Horns, your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns, brought to you by Rogue Sports Network. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll give you all the content you could ask for. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, huck 'em.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.